So, welcome everybody. It's definitely been a while. I thought this was the perfect opportunity for me to make a video about Mass Effect characters. A lot of people have already made this, and so I thought why not get my opinion out there as well. Now, I will provide you with the links so that you can make one for yourself and share it with other people. I'd be interested to see how you rank them personally, and definitely share your opinions on the way I rank them. So let's get started.
Sometimes I'm not sure if the Normandy's a warship or a traveling freak show.
First up, we have Thane. Yeah, I'll definitely put him in A tier because he has a decent story. He has some cool moments throughout Mass Effect 2 and 3, and depending on the way you play, uh, if he survives Mass Effect 2, he'll come and help you out in 3, and he's down the path of retribution. Every time he kills someone, he prays for retribution for himself. His backstory is kind of interesting. He was raised by Hanars to be an assassin, and because of that, he has a lifelong illness, and it is slowly killing him, and he's towards the end of his life. And so, I found that to be interesting. His gameplay was decent enough. However, I don't find him to be the best character out there. So yeah, I think I'll stick with A tier with him for now. Next up, Garrus Vakarian. Oof.
That's supposed to melt a girl's heart.
No, but this voice is.
I'm in the middle of some calibrations, in the middle of some calibrations.
S tier, definitely. He has to be one of the best written companions out there. The only other companion that I can think of right now is Alistair from Dragon Age Origins, which is another one of BioWare's product. So I think that goes to show how amazing BioWare was at their peak. He, as I said, he's the best written character. He has one of the best arcs. In the first game, he goes from a CSEC officer to, in the second game, a vigilante outlaw in Omega, to being a leader of Turian defense in their homeworld. So I think that's just fantastic. And obviously, if you're playing as a male shepherd, he's like a brother to you, and he's willing to die for you. He's willing to do anything for you. And as a female shepherd, I think he's one of the best, if not the best, romance options out there. So he definitely deserves place in S tier. Also, the banter that he has with other characters is amazing, especially the banter that he and Rex have in the first game during the elevator trips is just fantastic. And I still remember the first time playing through, and during the last mission of Mass Effect 3, you get the option of talking with each character, and conversation that you have with him was so heartfelt that it almost moved me to tears. So yes, definitely an S tier character for me. Next up, we have Grunt. He's a decent character, yeah. He's nothing special. I'll put him in B tier. I was a bit apprehensive towards him at first because I looked at him as a knockoff Rex, and Rex was an interesting character. We'll talk about him once we get to it. But it was a shame that we couldn't get more of him in the second game, and so when we first meet him, I was a bit apprehensive. But he did grow on me. He can be hot-headed like all the Krogans are. He has decent characters, but again, he's nothing special. He's like a teenager who doesn't know what he wants, and the funniest interaction that you have with him is in the third game during the Citadel DLC, where he gets caught up in some mess with CSEC officers, and the conversation that you have with him, I think that's pretty funny. But other than that, I think he's decent. He's just a B tier character for me. Oh, next up, Liara. Oof, S tier.
Flatterer.
I try.
I still remember my first time playing through, and I thought she was just a perfect character, a perfect girl, and sometimes even too perfect, I must say. But the first few times that I played through the game, she was my primary romance option, so maybe that has clouded my judgment a little bit. But I really like how she goes from an awkward scientist to the shadow broker, regardless if you help her or not. And the interesting thing is that the character development that she had between first and second game came to me as a bit of a surprise. But when I looked deeper into it, I found out that there's a comic book that recounts what she was doing during the time of Mass Effect 2 when the ship gets blown up and Shepard dies, and she goes on this whole journey of finding his body and then returning it to Cerberus. So I think that was kind of interesting. I would have liked if BioWare somehow integrated it into the games rather than making a separate comic about it. But I mean, regardless, it still doesn't change the fact that she's just perfect S tier character for me. I also think that BioWare wanted to push Liara as the main love interest for a majority of people so that they can make it canon. Because if you think about it, she's an Asari, and most Asaris live up to 1,000 years. And so what I think BioWare wanted to do, and again this is just a wild theory if you might, is that similar to what they did with Morgan in Dragon Age, make her a recognizable figure throughout the Mass Effect franchise. So when they eventually move from Shepard to some other story, she can be there as kind of like a reminder of the past. Again, but that's just a theory. Next up, we have Jack. I think I'll put her in B tier. Again, she's nothing special. She's a decent character. Her abilities are fine. Again, she's a biotic. You get a lot of biotics in second game, so she doesn't stand out that much. Her backstory is decent. The interesting thing is that if you decide to romance her and pursue that path throughout Mass Effect 2 and 3, the story and the interactions that you have with her are amazing. You learn how she goes from putting up a front of being tough to someone who really cares about you deep down. Also in Mass Effect 3, you see how she has transformed herself from being a badass and always thinking about blowing stuff up to a teacher who is now willing to guide the next generation of biotics. And she wants to make sure that what she had to go through with Cerberus, no other biotic has to go through that. So I think that is amazing. The other interesting thing about her is that the connection that you share with her, as I said, if you decide to romance her, is unlike any other. Because there are a lot of things that you can mess up in that interaction that you have with her, and you will not be able to fully find out about her story. So I think that's some interesting writing on BioWare's part. Next up, we have Jacob.
Exactly, same thing. What the hell?
He has to be a D tier character for me, obviously. The funny thing is that he's the only black character in the whole game, and they decided to make it so that his father leaves him. I don't know what they were thinking. He's just boring, he's just a regular old soldier. Throughout Mass Effect 2, he doesn't have interesting backstory, he doesn't have a character development, and if for some reason you play as female Shepard and you decide to romance him, I don't know why you would do that, but if you do that, in Mass Effect 3, you find out that he cheated on you. During the 6 months that you were in custody, he cheats on you, and then when you confront him about this, he decides to blame it on you. The only good thing is that in that moment you get the option of slapping him, and I think that's the best thing anyone could do. So yeah, nothing special to say about him. Next up we have James Vega, another character. I think I'll put him in C tier. He's not as bad as Jacob, but again he's just a regular soldier. He's the typical buff guy who is muscly and who is strong, and he just needs to show to everyone how he's so strong and superior. He's not a great character. Again, he's not as bad as Jacob, but he doesn't have a good backstory. If you decide to interact with him a little bit, you do find out that he was in a team and almost all of his team members die, and he was the one survived, and then he got picked up for N7 program. But I think it could have been implemented in a much better way. And compared to all these other characters on this list, I think he had the least amount of character development, in my opinion. I mean, naturally, because Mass Effect 3 was already so much rushed, and if the character is going to be in only one game, he's not going to be as deep as some of these other characters. But still, I don't think he's that special. Next up, we have Javik.
The one advantage machines have over organics is they can win staring contests.
I think I'm gonna put him in B tier. Here's why. Because this was the most interesting character for me. Because I had not expected them to bring in an actual living Prothean into the game. And I think that should have been a huge deal throughout the Mass Effect universe. Because here's someone who has actually lived through the Reaper invasion, even though he's just a soldier. He's just a regular soldier and not a scientist. I think there's a huge amount of missed opportunity there that they could have utilized. And I think for this we can give BioWare some leeway, because as we now know that development of Mass Effect 3 was actual hell. And I think we can all curse EA for this. I mean, actually, fuck EA. They have always been lackluster with creating trilogies, and I mean, look at Fable 3, Dragon Age. But forget about it. Let's talk about Javik. I think it should have been a huge deal, in my opinion, that there's an actual living Prothean amongst us, and they failed to utilize this golden opportunity. There's so much they could have done with this character, but still, they just failed. But again, he's still decent. He's good in combat. He has some funny moments. The banter that he has with Liara and Tali is still amazing, and the voice actor is still fantastic. Next up, we have Kaidan. Kaidan goes right alongside with James. He's a little bit better than James, obviously, because you spend a lot more time with him than with James. He's less of a racist than Ashley, and the one good thing about him, which is making me question whether I should put him in B tier or not, is that during the third game, as a female ship, if you decide to romance him, he has a complete 180 about his opinions, and I think that's a good trait that I should mention here, because unlike Ashley, his attitude towards you changes throughout the games. Unlike Ashley, he doesn't question your every single move. In second game, he's less of a dick about what you did and why you have sided on with the Cerberus. And in the third game, like I said, he does have a amazing turnaround towards his attitude. So I think that's good. Next up, we have Kasumi. Again, she's a decent character. She's not as bad as Kaidan, but again, she's not as amazing as one of these characters. I'll put her in B tier for now. But the only reason I'm putting her in B tier is because during her mission, you get one of the best SMGs in Mass Effect 2. If you missed out, just check this video. You'll find out. It's not missable, actually. Most of the people will get it. It is one of the best guns in the game. Her abilities are decent. She's a thief, so she can, vanish and then appear behind enemies and do that kind of stuff. Her loyalty mission was fine. Compared to other characters, she doesn't receive that much screen time in Mass Effect 3. Obviously, she's present there in Citadel DLC, but again, all the characters that you've interacted with throughout the first game are present there, but I would have enjoyed it a little bit more if she was more present, and the one quest that you have with her is not that interesting. Next up, we have Legion. Legion is a good character, in my opinion. I'll definitely put him in A tier. The reason being, I did not expect a Geth character to be present in the game. Throughout the first game, it was made very clear that amongst our enemies are obviously the Reapers, but they use Geth as their minions to destroy worlds. And so we find out more about Geth and how they kicked out the Quarians through Tali, but we never expect Legion, a Geth character, to share his opinions. And in the third game, his views on AI, and it really made me question about the ethical nature of artificial intelligence. Again, his abilities in gameplay are decent. Again, the interesting thing is that he has a piece of N7 armor, and we never get the actual answer of how he got the N7 armor, or what shot him and why did it take so long for him to patch up the wounds that he had and with the armor. So I think that's interesting, and I think Tali and Legion are these two amazing characters that we have in the game on the complete opposite sides of the same war, and we get different views on the same thing. So I think that's a good thing. Next up, we have Ashley. Let me just... Yes, you should always leave her on Warmire, because there is nothing special about her. She's a boring character. Here's the thing, not only is she a racist, and in the first game, she constantly talks to you about how there are so many aliens on the ship, and how we should be careful about who we trust. She also makes the comparison of aliens with dogs, and how humans are the only ones who have the right to think for themselves and who should be preserved, and aliens should be, these other races should be below humans. I think that's just bad. The other thing is, she's the only character who stays the same throughout the playthrough. Throughout the whole of Mass Effect trilogy, she doesn't change. She barely changes her views on other races. She barely has any interesting to provide to you. And in Mass Effect 2, she has it in for Cerberus, and she doesn't even listen to you on why you have sided on with Cerberus. And through, she's a complete bitch. There's no reason why you should keep her alive. Next up, we have Miranda. Oof.
Damn, look at them titties!
She's a B tier character, honestly. I mean, she's decent, her backstory is decent, but she's definitely good looking. But that's it, that's the only thing that she's going for her. Kind of like in real life, more beautiful people get, the more dumb they are. Her loyalty mission was fairly decent. What I didn't like was the conflict that she had with her father was resolved too quickly in Mass Effect 3. The other thing is that in Mass Effect 3, at various points she's going to contact you and to inform you about what she's doing. And during all those little moments, Shepard inquires of, hey, maybe I should help you. And she's like, no, I'm dealing it with on my own. So what I don't understand is, why does she even contact us if she doesn't even want our help? That's baffling to me. And the thing about her is that she does not understand the concept of twins. She was a test tube baby, a clone created purely of her father's gene, and then he made another copy a few years later, and she thinks that is her twin. That's actually not how it works. Someone as smart as her should know that. The other thing is that during the final mission, if you decide to bring her with you, she's going to do a complete 180 on Cerberus and decide to backstab them. Here's the interesting thing. If you decide to romance her, you kind of understand that why she would do that, and you see the gradual change in her attitude towards yourself, and she starts to question Cerberus' authority. However, if you do not decide to romance her, that quick change in her mindset, that quick betrayal comes from left field. You are not expecting that. And there's no actual way the game can explain how and why she decides to betray the elusive man. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, she's definitely B tier character for me. Good looking, but again, not the most interesting. Ooh, next up, Mordin Solus. Definitely an S tier character. One of the best characters in the second game. Also, he's the character with the most amount of dialogue written for him in the second game. Fun fact, if you didn't know. The other thing is that he realizes that the genophage was bad. At first he tries to justify it as why it happened, and we kind of understand of why they had to do it in a way. But throughout the second and third game, he works tirelessly to undo those mistakes. And I feel he has one of the best send-off in all of the trilogy. During the last moments he says, it had to be me. If it were someone else, they would have gotten it wrong. I think that's a really amazing line from him, one-liner. And all in all, he's just the type of character you want to have around. It's a shame that he dies. Also, again, I've seen numerous videos on how you can save him, but again, that's a really evil path that you have to take. And I feel he wouldn't be happy. I think I'd rather have him have that amazing send-off than make him survive that. Next up, we have Samara. A lot of the characters are going to end up in B tier, but it is what it is. She's very stoic. She always meditates. I found it very interesting. She's an Ardak Yakshi. She's one of the top Asari killers, if you might. But she's very strict, and she always adheres to her code. And you see it in the second game during a loyalty mission that she is willing to kill her own daughter because she broke the code. She's now a threat to all of the people, all of the races in the universe. And even in the third game, you see that she is willing to again kill one of her other daughters just because she has to adhere to her code. So I think that was interesting. Yes, so I would have enjoyed to see her more. I would have liked that if she had been given a little more screen time in the third game. But other than that, I think she's a really good B tier character. I think she is the perfect B tier character in my opinion. Next up, we have Edie. Yes, A tier. of course, alongside with Legion, two of the AI characters in A tier. She has amazing body. I mean, she's really funny. Right after Jeff decides to break her locks, she asks some amazing questions about morality.
Do you think I should make modifications? Do you believe your crew members should be allowed to disobey an order on moral grounds?
Throughout the game, there are a lot of occasions when you get to interact with her, and she's going to ask you some really deep questions, and they're going to apply widely, not just in the game, but throughout life. And I think that's interesting. The interactions that you have with her at the Presidium, at the Citadel, and also later on in the third game in the DLC. I think that's just funny. The interaction that she and Joker has at the party are funny. So I think all in all, she's a good character. At first I thought that she might be, a bit boring or a bit cringy, but she's really funny at times, and yeah, definitely an A tier character for me. Next up, we have Tali.
Nice job, you genetically perfect Cerberus cheerleader Boshtet. Kila Solai.
She has a fat ass. I mean, she has a really interesting personality. She is really funny and quirky. I like that. She makes her opinion known. You find her in the first game at a backdoor deal gone wrong, and throughout there she has been strung along with Shepard in his amazing adventures. At first I didn't understand what people found appealing about her, other than the obvious thing. But then in my third playthrough, when I decided to romance her, I found out that I don't know how to explain it, but she's a really deep character. And I think what's amazing about her is that you never get to see her face, except for one separate occasion, or if you decide to mod the game, obviously. And except for that occasion, you never see her face, and you still care so deeply about her. I think that goes to show how amazingly written this character is. And she has some really interesting. She has some flaws in her. She is a bit clumsy. She tends to overthink things. And one of the really funny scenes that I remember is from the third game, when she decides to get drunk, and the interaction that she has with Shepard is just hilarious.
Shepard! Want a drink? I'm toasting Miranda, I think.
How are you getting drunk?
Very carefully. Taurian brandy, triple filtered, then introduced into the suit through an emergency induction port.
That's a straw, Tali.
Emergency induction port.
Next up, we are just near the end. We have Rex. He has to be an S tier for me. And if you see, most of the S tier characters except for Mordin are from the first game. That is because these are the characters that we spend most amount of time with, and we see them grow throughout the trilogy. And again, with the Rex, it's same. He was a mercenary, and then he became the king, and then in the third game, he decides to join the war effort and helps Shepard save the Earth. I think that's fantastic. Again, he's hilarious at times, and the banter that he has with Garrus, with Liara, or with the love interest that you have in third game is fantastic. The back and forth that they have, the conversations that you can have with him in the third game at the bar are truly hilarious. But again, he's not at the top of S tier, as you might have seen. He's towards the bottom. Let me just change it. So Tali and Liara are kind of in the second place of S tier. Garrus has to be at the top of S tier, and Mordin and Rex are kind of like in third, really close. So the reason Rex is there is because he's not that. You do not interact with him that much in the second game, and that was the reason I was really upset. Again, in the second game, the interaction that you have with him is really funny, and you find out that he's the king, and how he helps you with Grunt and making Grunt into accepting him into the Urdnot family. I think that's fantastic. Gameplay wise, he's an absolute unit. You don't need to worry about anything when you have him with you. So yeah, but definitely an S tier character, but not at the top of S tier for me. Next up we have Zaid. Yeah, he's a C tier character for me, because he's really boring and uninteresting for the most part. In the second game, you find out that Black Sun's one of the major gangs in Omega. He was one of the founding members of it. And you go after the other founding member who kicked him out of the gang. So I thought that would have been interesting if you somehow later find out that Zaid is now back in the gang and he's running the gang, and then maybe that way he could have helped you in Mass Effect 3. I think that would have been interesting. But you don't get any of that. He's just a decent, boring character. He's not that interesting. I wouldn't call him boring, but he's not that interesting. Yeah, that's it. That's the final tier list. So I'd be interested to know your guys' opinion. What do you think? Obviously, I feel as the majority of people would agree with the S tier ratings. Also, a lot of you might agree with the A tier. I feel like a lot of you might be upset with me putting Miranda in B tier. I think she's like one of the characters that a lot of people love. That's only because she looks good. But yeah, that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you.
एक तो लाइक और शेयर ठोक लीजिए महाकाल का दबा के लाइक और शेयर ठोक लीजिए